Remember to subscribe for daily top Reddit stories. Okay, story time. Fathers of Reddit. In honor of Father's Day, what was your don't tell your mother about this moment? Female co-worker of mine was miserable at work one day. I asked her what was wrong. She told me it was her anniversary, and she knew her husband had forgotten. She had preteen girls at home during summer vacation. I knew her home phone number. Pre-cell phone era. I called her home phone and one kid picked up. Explained to the kid who I was and that she needed to call dad at work and remind him it was mom and dad's anniversary. And don't tell mom or dad I called. The next day she was all smiles. Gosh, she did remember. Brought home flowers and took her to dinner. Mission accomplished. Not a word was ever said about this until 6 years later. When she left the company, she gave me a hug at a farewell luncheon and whispered, "My kids ratted you out. Thank you, you." One night I was enjoying a small bit of ice cream after my 4-year-old daughter went to bed. She came downstairs and caught me, so I offered her a small bite. But since she was supposed to be in bed, I said don't tell mom. She assured me she wouldn't. My wife wouldn't have cared anyway, but it was a fun little game to play. After she went up to bed and I was down on the couch, she snuck into the master bedroom where mom was resting. She told mom that I had let her have some ice cream, and she was afraid of sugar bugs, so could she please brush her teeth again. My wife just laughed at me the next day. Little sheet ratted me out to brush her teeth, something she doesn't like doing anyway. My dad and I, around 5 years old, were on our way home from a car show when we were getting followed by the cops. My dad struggled to put on his seatbelt quickly in hopes he wouldn't get a ticket. Unfortunately, we got pulled over. This might have been the first time ever that I saw a cop this close up, let alone speak to one. I was a deer in headlights the whole time. Well, with the cop on either side of the car, the officer leaned in and asked my dad why he was swerving. That big Nick told the cops I was tickling him. The cops looked at me straight in the eyes and asked if this was true. I was too scared to say anything and just nodded yes. The officer smiled and said, "Never to do that again while your father is driving." Okay. They left without any further words and my dad gave me the lecture of don't tell your mom. Too long. Didn't read. Dad and I get pulled over when he tried to get his seatbelt on. Blamed it on me tickling him instead. Not a father but a son. We forgot my passport during vacation and were already at the border station when we noticed. My dad then said that we won't turn back but that he will figure something out. Turns out he smuggled me successfully across 3 border crossings without my passport. Before we arrived at home, he told me not to tell my mom about this. Dad and I used to rent a movie each week for when mom had dinner with friends. Usually things like Star Trek or action films. One day, I was about 11. He came home with Blade. We got about 10 minutes in and he turns to me and said, "Don't tell your mother about this. Let's just say I forgot to get it this week." Of course I agree. Fast forward 7ish years. Dad blithely drops at the dinner table the fact that we watched Blade when I was about 11. Silly dad thought there was some kind of statute of limitations on this. When my 3-year-old wakes up in the middle of the night, like maybe 3 times a month, instead of putting her back to sleep, okay, her stay up and partake in whatever it is I am doing no matter what. Sometimes she falls asleep in minutes and so many times she stays up for a couple hours. I think it's amazing times. I think it may even be dreamlike for her by the way she speaks and moves. She has painted with me, heard my books read aloud, watched Lord of the Rings and cooked creme brulee. The rule is, it's my time, so if she's gonna be with me she does what I'm doing just like I do for her all day long. She totally gets it and never makes it about her. My goodness. Thank you everybody for your comments and your awards. What a special day to be recognized as a father. I was in middle school. My father gradually bought computers and monitors for us 4 kids and himself, and the 5 of us would play World of Warcraft together for many days and always log off 1 hour before mom got home. We'd rush all the chores in that 1 hour. That's when we had teamwork at its finest. She never knew we all played cause she thought it was the devil. I have always worked in restaurants and get home late nights. On Fridays I treat myself to takeout. Not just any takeout. The bad stuff. Cheese fries topped with gyro meat. Steak nachos with guac. Always a large. Always with a big bottle of beer they sell singly. When my girls were little they would sneak down late at night and we would munch bad food and watch really bad funny movies with all the swear words in. When my son was 6 I was playing Grand Theft Auto late at night. He wakes up and comes to the living room, tells me he can't sleep, and asks can he watch me play. I say he can but not to tell his mom. He agrees with a big smile. Maybe after about an hour he is playing and I'm watching and helping him. He can't stop laughing, driving into people and running from the cops. I was telling him to watch out for the 5-0 and he asks me what that means. So I tell him it's the cops. He just shrugs and keeps playing. Now fast forward about a week later and we are all driving in the car. All I hear is a scream of "Dad, watch out, it's the 5-0" and I absolutely start crying from laughing so hard, all while his mother is questioning where he learned that. He just says YouTube. She found out later that I'll let him play GTA. But I hope the memory of that is as special to him as it is to me. When I was in middle school I was the only one willing to go shopping groceries with my dad. He didn't want to go alone and my mom was at school studying her masters. None of my siblings wanted to go with him. We used to go to Carl's Jr., have a big breakfast, and then we went grocery shopping. Nobody knew, not even my mom, until years later. He would also let me buy any cereal I wanted. That's actually how I learned how to buy good fruit and veggies, how to order meat and fish, etc. When my siblings found out they were angry because they would have gone if a big breakfast was on the menu. My mom just laughed. Nowadays they sneak to have breakfast together before going grocery shopping since we're all grown up. Party popper. In the winter, he would put the toboggan behind the 4-wheeler and take us out into the fields and ride around. My mom found out after it tipped and my face got beat up and was bleeding everywhere. Fun. Edit. A toboggan is a sled in the use of an item you slide down on in the snow. Not a father, but I was with my dad and we thought it was a good idea to start a small fire on the porch. The wooden porch. It was made of mostly paper and we made sure to scatter the embers and everything, but after we went inside and to bed, the wind must have kicked up because we came outside the next day and there was a giant hole burned into the porch. My dad just told me, "Hey, don't tell your mom. I'll get it fixed." He proceeded to cover it with a small table. She found out anyway and we're pretty lucky that the house didn't burn down. When my wife's at work, I will take my daughter, 4-year-old, out for breakfast. Then we will go on a small adventure around a shop of her choice and pretend whatever she wants. Last time we went to a car parts shop and rolled tires around as we were freeing the rollings from Monster. So far my wife doesn't believe her when she later on grasses me up. To be honest, it's the only thing pre-COVID I miss doing. Dad was putting new roof shingles on. I was probably 3, maybe 4. I asked if I could help. He said if I could climb the ladder, sure. I was always climbing so that was no issue. Climbed right on up and started handing him shingles. It would have been a don't tell your mother moment had she not come home from grocery shopping. After several back and forth of "Where are you?" and "Up here mom," she figured it out and flipped out. What is he doing on the roof? Daughter speaking for her father. In high school, everybody was always busy at work or clubs, so I was the first one in my household to get home nearly every single day. Dad was having money troubles that he didn't want to disclose to anyone, so he paid me $5 a month to take the bank statement letter from the mailbox and hide it from my stepmom until he got home. It was the closest thing I got to an allowance. P.S. I had no idea what the money trouble was. By the way, I was always the don't ask, don't tell person, so that's why he trusted me the most about this. Not a real don't tell your mother about this moment, but when I was little, my dad had a workshop in the garage where he'd do woodwork. I'd come out and talk to him while he worked, and he'd let me sit on the car that was parked in the garage. He framed it as something that was so bad and edgy and we couldn't tell my mom. And I was 5, so I believed it and felt so cool without actually doing anything wrong or dangerous. One for my dad. My dad took me to my first MLB game. God, I miss baseball, and told me not to tell my mom. Later found out it was because the game was a good bit outside of the travel radius set in the custody agreement. They were arguing a lot more than usual at the time, so he knew mom would say no if he asked about it, but really wanted to take me to a game. told me not to say anything so she couldn't use it against him while trying to take him to family court again. Luckily I didn't say anything and we got to keep sneaking away to games until the travel radius stopped being a thing. Dad still has the tickets too. Not a father but a story about mine. One day I decided to pull a sick day at school and came downstairs and saw that my dad was making a coffee. I asked him what he was doing and why he wasn't at work and he said I could ask you the same question. We stood in silence for a moment and he said I won't tell your mum if you won't. We had a good laugh about it and he let me have the day off. When I was younger my dad and I would always go to the movies together. It was our thing. I always looked forward to it. Also, when I was about 11, we would often watch Family Guy or South Park together. Certainly not age appropriate, but nothing too terrible I don't think. However, one day he took me to see Team America, World Police when it came out, made by the guys who did South Park. I think he realized his mistake during the Puppet 6 scene, and immediately after said don't tell your mom about this. Rest in peace Dad. Love and miss you. I was having a good heart-to-heart with my stepdad as a teen. We were chilling in the shop where he does most of his odd job work, and by the end of our conversation he pulls out his bong and asks wanna keep going? But don't tell your mom, she will throw my ads through a window. Ironically enough the way they met was at a bar and my stepdad was hitting on her and she said she could throw him across the bar. He dared her. So she did. He told me that was the moment he knew he would fall in love with her. I took both kids out at around 13 to show them how to drive. Just in big empty parking lots or in the neighborhood, but they loved it and I enjoyed a little secret with them for a while. This last Christmas my 4-year-old helped my wife wrap one of my gifts. It was late so I was working. The next day, while my wife was at work, she came running through from her bedroom first thing and yelled excitedly, "Daddy, Daddy, I helped wrap your gift. It's a surprise. It's a slushie maker." Honey, that's awesome, but you aren't supposed to tell me that. I know, but it's a slushie maker. If you know not to tell me, then why did you tell me? Because I'm just so excited to make slushies with you. I was crying with laughter at this point and told her that it's an awesome gift but to keep gifts secret. And I told her we wouldn't tell mummy so she wouldn't be disappointed that I knew what it was. I ended up telling her that evening because it was just too funny and cute. Dad scratched the car after an idiot turned and rammed into us. He told me to just keep it a secret and he slid me a few singles to keep my mouth shut. But she found out anyway, lol. Nice try, Mom. My dad, brother, and I went out to these dunes near where I live with bottle rockets. We each had an empty milk jug and each took like 20 bottle rockets for ammo. Then, we ran around launching bottle rockets at each other. I was the youngest, which made me the hardest to hit. So I won the rocket war. But yet, Mom never found out. My dad taught me how to play throw rocks, where you toss a handful of rocks in the air directly above you and run away before they hit you. I was playing it one day with my cousin and got clunked on the head by a big one and bled all over my face and shirt collar. I went crying to Dad and he paid me $1 and a piece of gum to keep quiet about the throw rocks game and just tell Mom my cousin threw it at me. My relationship with my cousin has been irreversibly damaged since then because I lied on him and he never wanted to talk to me again, so we drifted apart. While building the outdoor playset for my 5-year-old, I drilled a screw completely through a board and into my shoe, barely stopping just as the screw broke skin. I swore right in front of him. Something along the lines of "Mother ducking duck, mother ducker." We are sworn to secrecy to this day. My dad has passed away, so I'll tell this on his behalf. My sister was maybe 10 or 11. My dad was very worried and had been waiting all day for us to come home from school. When we got home he pulled her aside saying he needed to have a serious talk with her. He said to her, "I was looking for a pencil and found this in your desk," and pulled out a plastic baggie filled with some dried plant material. She said, "Oh, catnip." He thought it was pot. We would make little cat toys with catnip and the bag had ripped, so she put it in a Ziploc bag. He sighed a huge sigh of relief and laughed and told her he thought she was doing drugs and asked her not to tell our mom. He was so embarrassed. My dad used to hoist my siblings and I to the ceiling in a garbage can with a come along and swing us back and forth. Fun as hell, but don't tell your mother. My dad cooked us all dinner as a surprise. He was a wizard in the kitchen, and my mom had no idea since everyone shushed. So, she also cooked a 3-course meal in honor of my dad's and my huge appetite. All I can say is that I've never eaten more in my life. The embodiment of gluttony. My parents helped me out with rent during college. They'd send me a check every month for $800, which was honestly really nice of them. My mom usually does it, but for whatever reason my dad did it once and spelled my name wrong on the check. Like Alicia instead of Alyssa, so it wasn't just a spelling error but also changed the sound of my name a bit. I didn't notice until I was at the bank in line at the teller already and I called my parents. My dad literally said the words "Don't tell your mother about this," and didn't realize my mom was on the other line. Face with tears of joy. To this day he says he was just distracted and in a rush. College was over a decade ago, but my mom still plays the "at least I didn't forget what our daughter's name was" trump card now and then. My dad and I were emptying the car of a half side of beef to the freezer when I noticed that he was having some issues holding the packages and there was a thick bandage peeking out of the cuff of his shirt with some blood on it. I asked him what was wrong with his wrist, to which he replied, "A glass shield on an electric meter shattered at work and slit my wrist. I had to get stitches. Don't tell your mother." Dad hurt himself. I said, "Don't tell your mother." Granddaughter speaking on grandfather's behalf. When my mom was young, her mother would always bake a bunch of sugar cookies and store them in the pantry until Christmas. After she baked them, my mom and her dad would sneak into the pantry one at a time and eat the cookies. After about 2 months, they had finished the whole batch. My grandmother went to fetch the cookies on Christmas only to find crumbs left. She was pissed. LOL. Miss you, Opa. Red heart. Saying this in honor of my dad as he is very old and does not Reddit. He once cut the end of my toe off as a baby, cutting my sharp baby nails, and my screaming brought in my brother. He joined forces to get me all bandaged up and told my mother I'd banged it into a wall or trapped it in a door or something. My mum found out, and by extension so did I, when I was 10. A wholesome one. For my mum's 50th birthday he bought her a set of vintage diamond and pearl earrings and a necklace. I helped him choose them out. I'm never allowed to tell her just how much they cost. I'm not a dad, but this is about my father. It was freshman year and I was 13. That day I ran a mile for rock warm up, went to dance class, had wrestling practice after school which always includes weightlifting and running a mile for both warm up and cool down. Then worked 4 hours construction. Just got home, thought I was alone, went outside and sparked the joint I was looking forward to all day. My dad steps outside, sits right next to me, hands me a beer and asks about my day. He never said anything about the smoke. The end of that conversation ended with "Don't tell your mother about this." My mom. I have never been with any man other than your father, nor has he been with any woman other than me. My dad. Oh yeah, when I was first seeing your mom I had like 4 other girls I was talking to on the side. Don't tell her though. Shoot, I gotta go serve justice. Thanks for listening. If I sparked joy, hit me with a like and subscribe. I make new videos every day. Till then, check out another video or leave a comment. I love you. Have a great day, you confident top tier person.